Hey everyone, and welcome to the Rebel AI podcast. I'm your host, Sam Joseph, and today we're very lucky to have technologist and key member of the Rebel AI community, Lorna Brightmore, on the podcast. Welcome, Lorna.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Absolutely great to have you with us. And of course, we leap first into our starting question, which is, what is your technology origin story? How did you become the technology superpower that you are?
Um, through maths essentially. So, and I guess I was relatively late to the kind of AI technology side of what I do. So, um, I've always just enjoyed maths, been good at
Mm,
it. In fact, like literally, like one of my earliest memories was on our Commodore 64 or whatever computer we had at the time, trying to play my older brother's maths game, which I didn't understand at all because I don't think I was even at school at the time. And then I just distinctly remember this very like angry noise that fired up when I got the answer wrong to whatever counting thing I was trying to do, and it terrified me. But I
Was that an
kept
angry noise from the computer or from you internally?
no from the well, probably both, but definitely from the computer. And it was traumatizing, but I was so obsessed with whatever it was, the numbers or whatever it is that I grabbed from the game that I kept going back until the point that my mum had to be like, look, this is not healthy. Like, this is causing you pain. Please stop playing your older brother's game. You don't understand. Um, and then yeah, I think all the way through school it was the thing that I just enjoyed the most, the thing I was good at. Um, it was obvious, like it was an obvious choice for me to go to university to do maths. Yeah, it's kind of all I wanted to do. And then I did a 4 year like undergraduate and master's course in maths. I got
Mm,
to the end of that and then sort of, I don't know, was looking at the job market and nothing particularly appealed or
mhm.
it felt like I wasn't quite done in that sense where I was just like I wasn't quite ready to kind of like leave the mathematical bubble thing that I'd created for
Right.
myself. So I yeah, I had a word with my project supervisor at the time doing my end of year project, asking him about his how he got into being a researcher and everything, and how all of that worked, what a PhD was like, that kind of thing. Because I guess I didn't really have any knowledge, I suppose, at that time, other than my professors. Like I didn't know anyone that was doing a PhD. Um, and yeah, it was through him that I ended up at Bristol doing a PhD in random matrix theory.
Right.
Um, which was, yeah, somewhere I'd always kind of wanted to go and wanted to live. I don't know why. It just sort of felt
Uh-huh.
like an interesting place. And so, yeah, fortunately, able to get that opportunity and
Wonderful.
then carried on in maths to do a PhD.
Right.
Um,
And you said random matrix theory.
yeah, that's right. So it was very like, I guess the concept around random matrix theory is sort of how it sounds, which is where you have a problem
Uh-huh.
that can be explained by some kind of matrix, which a
Right.
lot of things can, like you have some kind of like multi-dimensional problem, but
Mhm.
with some kind of randomness or stochastic nature in it, where you don't know the problem itself to fully explain. And so the ideas around random matrix theory is like modeling this problem with a matrix or an ensemble of matrices where you have essentially like random distributed variables in your matrix rather than like a deterministic problem to help you kind of like understand and model like the statistics of a certain area. So
Mhm.
this is kind of the area of research that I was sort of involved in.
Mm.
Um, which also I guess turns out to be not that I really knew it at the time, but not bad preparation for like machine learning
No,
and
indeed.
science. And yeah, which yeah, was something I hadn't really thought about at the time. I mean,
Mm.
my whole PhD was very theoretical.
Yes.
It was very like lots of like complex analysis, and I like to describe it as like maths that looks good on a blackboard, like with your big
Okay.
long
Yeah.
intervals and
Right.
those kind of functions. And so all of my work was, I mean, I actually did have a blackboard on my desk because that's kind of how I quite like to work and like
Right.
draw out things. Um, yeah, so it was all very, very theoretical, but like the ideas behind it, I guess, are things that are permeated, I think, through data science and AI. And then I reached the end of my PhD and I was like, I felt like that was my time. That was my time to, step away from maths, I guess, or step away from full-time maths.
Right.
I think by the time I got there, I mean, I hugely enjoyed my PhD and everything up to that point, but I
Mm.
think you reach a point in academia where it feels like a vocation rather than a career.
Right.
And all of my, you know, my peers who ended up carrying on in academia, um, you could just tell, I think they internalize things differently than I was. Like, I think
Mm.
you wake up thinking about the problem that you're trying to solve, and you know, will work late into the night trying to like focus on the bit of the research area. And essentially, you like that is your life. That is the thing that gets you up in the morning, is like
Right.
the you like embody the nature of the problem in a way that um I just was happy not to be honest. It always felt more like it was fun and it was interesting and I enjoyed it, but I enjoy lots of things and I like lots of things that are fun and interesting in my life. And I felt like I was like not really like desperate to dedicate my life to, carrying on down the academic route. So
Yeah. So like
um
you didn't want like theoretical. I mean, I guess you're describing people who stayed on as they're people
yeah,
who are like so motivated by the mass theory that it's like "Ooh, ah," they're
yeah,
on for years and years and years and years. And you were thinking, well, that's kind of fun, but I would like to see some other stuff, do some other things, kind of.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like I think I remember I was at like a physics summer school thing in the Alps,
Oh yeah.
and there was a group of people who were using the long breaks between to go ski, which is great. I mean, I don't ski, but
Yeah.
I got that. There was the other people who were, and there was a lot of people who were just like, oh, we've got great breaks. Let's go and like get in a room and do more research and like work on
Right.
this problem together. And
Yeah.
I was like, I want to get outside and do some walks and visit the
Mm.
towns and enjoy nature and stuff. And I felt like I was, yeah, I mean, I think it was all credit to people that want to go down that route. But I think by
Sure.
the time I'd finished my PhD, I knew that it was not like something that would have been massively fulfilling for me in my life. So
Yeah.
at that point, I was like, okay, time to think about what else is out there, what
Right.
else, life outside of academia.
Yeah.
Um, I then took, well, it took me about a year to kind of get into actual paid work, which I took some time out basically.
Yeah.
Did a little bit of volunteering, did a little bit of traveling, had a very lovely, stress-free, incredible year.
Mm.
Then, yeah, when I joined the careers and joined work, after a short time, I ended up in the civil service
Hmm.
doing
Hmm.
in the operational research for the Department of Education. So it was about
Right.
modeling and forecasting who's going to turn up at what schools and how much are they going to cost, because all of that then feeds into government budget decisions about
Right. Right.
how much we need to spend on different things,
Hmm.
new policies that come in, what are they going to cost, so that, they go into the forecasting and stuff.
Right.
Um, I really enjoyed that because I think I felt like it was part of a bigger purpose, if you see what I
Right.
mean.
Yeah.
It felt like a nice home from home for academia, where you're part of a big institution and you're working on a
Right.
thing for like a greater good kind of
Yeah.
idea. And being in part of Whitehall and going to work at Westminster and stuff like that very
Mm.
much felt like that. It scratched
Mm.
that itch, which was really nice.
Hmm.
Um, but I was there for about a year and a half, and then I think eventually I got, you know, not I don't know, maybe frustrated's maybe a slightly stronger word, but the
Well.
idea of things are very, very slow to change. Tech is
Mm.
very, you know, outdated. I don't know what it's like
Sure.
now. At the time, we were doing lots of complicated things, but using Microsoft Excel and
Right.
VBA and, a
Hmm.
little bit of
Hmm.
SQL if you're lucky. But uh, yeah, nothing like you can do in the private sector, which again makes sense because it's money. It has to be transparent. Everyone has to get agreements on it, and
Right.
I think it's part of the territory. But I felt when I could starting to see some things that were glaringly like could be better, I guess, in terms of like how we do. And again, I guess suppose it's my first proper job, there was lots of stuff I didn't totally understand about data organization, data structure,
Mm,
you know, how to how to manage these things. But I could tell that what we were doing at the civil service just was really slow and a bit tedious in some ways. And but then
mm,
I was also completely powerless to change it because you are
right.
but a cog in a tiny, a
Sure.
tiny cog in a big machine.
Hmm.
Um, and at that time, data science was getting more hyped and becoming more of an interesting career and stuff like
Hmm.
that. You
Hmm.
know, was invading my consciousness a little bit. So I ended up on a data science fellowship with faculty, or ASI they were
Um,
at the time,
oh, yeah.
which yeah, was it's kind of like a training camp for recovering academics that want to get into
Right.
the world of data science. Um, where yeah, you get a little bit of on-the-job training, learn about the theory. You do a project they put you in a different company, and you do a project there, and that's kind of the breaking the sort of you need skills to get experience and you need
Right. Right.
experience, or to get the job kind of loop. Um, which was, yeah, it was a really good experience. And it was at that point, so this is obviously like quite late into my general like academic and maths that I finally learned to code
Uh-huh.
because up until that point, so I knew a little bit of SQL from, yeah, previous jobs. Uh,
Hmm.
and I knew, I guess, a little bit of MATLAB I ended up having to do
Right.
as part of my PhD, but because all of my work at this point had been totally theoretical,
Mm.
that I just happened to have never learned how to
Right.
code
Sure.
and was never that bothered about it before, I guess. I
Hmm.
never really saw it as, a thing I wanted to do or
Sure.
anything. So, but the fellowship was good because I got on it. I got accepted, and then I had a date where I was like, okay, in 2 months' time, I'm going to be expected to do something in Python, and I don't know anything about Python right now, so
Uh-huh.
I have to learn it basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so then I spent a little bit of time in the evenings, like, learning as much Python as I could, and then
Yeah.
like a lot more Python, obviously, to do the fellowship, and then yeah, and and then from there, I basically ended up staying at the company that I did
Oh,
the
the project. Yeah.
the project with because so I joined like a small well, they're a big company now, it's Tails.com, but at the time they were a small like 50-person startup
Right.
in a little moldy office above Holland and Barrett on a high street. And
Uh-huh.
I was very much, it felt like the opposite of the civil service in so many ways, in that
Oh, really?
like you can literally do anything because it's a small company and there's
Right.
so
Right.
much to do and everyone's like, do you want to
Yeah.
do this? Let's go try this. Um, and also there was dogs, which is great because I'm a huge lover of dogs. So that
Mm.
was,
Mm.
I was like, I get to come work in a company and do fun things, and there's dogs running around, and
Woohoo.
it's nice. So, yeah. So at that point, I that was my transition into being a data scientist. Basically, left the civil service, stayed there, and stayed there for 7 years.
Yeah, amazing. And I think we were speaking to Ryan in the last episode. Yeah, I think he also did not dissimilar. I think he did a PhD and then did, I don't think it was with faculty, but it's one of these data science conversion courses and a bit of a similar path there. Fantastic. Yeah, and then so and at Tails that was all crunching data. It was data science Python all the way through.
Yeah, exactly. So I was the first data scientist hire. There was one person on the data team at that point, so I was the second in, first person doing data science. So
Yeah,
it was definitely, yeah. So the idea and the project that I was working on was like a customer retention because it's a subscription business, and it was like
right,
a customer retention project.
right.
Very, you know, pretty standard stuff for like a good
Mm,
data science application in a business structure like that. Um, so yeah, there was definitely like, you know, hitting the ground running with like machine learning and everything, but
mm,
because of the nature, it was a small team and like there's only one other person, it was also like very much a generalist role.
mm,
Where
mm,
it was like they just needed questions, we had tests we needed to run, we had like questions we needed answered. So it was a lot of um like insights digging and
mm,
everything like that, as well as the machine
mm,
learning, which is great because I enjoy it all. Like I say,
Mm,
I think my route into data science was like I like solving interesting problems
hmm
and
hmm
fun and things that motivate me. Like I think it was never about the like the craft of writing the code in the first place. So if the
Mm.
interesting problem was digging into this data to find out, how puppies like our foods, like that's great. Crack on, let's do it. Or if it's
Yes.
building a machine learning model to do something else, that's also great. So
Yes.
yeah, very much a lot of everything there at Tails.
Yeah, and then that sounds there like you're saying you're sort of excited by the business problem rather than necessarily the tech. Like it's like the technology. You're kind of like, oh, what's this thing that we need to solve? Give me an interesting problem, and whichever tools are appropriate,
Yeah.
I'll use those. But it's the problem first rather than the tools themselves or craft, is what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's why so when I left Tails, I'm now at a different startup at Fertility where
Mm.
um, the mission is well, yeah, I mean I think it's fantastic, but
Yeah. Tell us
Fertility
tell us
exists.
about the mission. Yeah.
Yeah, I know a little bit about it, but basically Fertility exists to give women answers about their bodies that they
Mm.
otherwise cannot get through certainly like public healthcare. Um,
Mm.
so a lot of your a lot of your physical health is associated with your hormonal health. Like if
Right.
your hormones are out of range, you will feel different, you will feel crap.
Right.
Um, Obviously, if you are interested in having a child or are trying to conceive and struggling, your hormones and what's going on there might be a cause of that, not always, but can be. So, the fertility offering is basically we, you do most people who do the testing where you do a health assessment, go through all of your symptoms and all of the
Yeah.
things that you want to know and what you're interested in learning about, with an at-home blood test, kind of similar to like Thriver, I guess, or
Mhm.
other similar ones like that.
Right.
Um, then we test that, and depending on the answers to what you want to know, we'll test for different things within your
Yeah.
blood. You will get back a doctor's report, possibly with a diagnosis, possibly with just some information or some next steps on what you want to do.
Yeah.
And we can turn that around in days rather than months or years, which is often the waiting lists, the gynecological waiting list in the NHS is outrageously long. And
Right.
even when you get to a GP, having a GP that understands
Right.
like, pain and what's normal and taking you
Mm.
seriously is not always a guarantee. So it can take several years to get a diagnosis for things that really can be done in a couple of months with a
Right.
test, a few follow-up appointments. So
Yeah. And I guess
yeah,
it's a parallel there to your experience with the civil service for the DOE is, I mean, the people, doing good, important work, trying to make it available and so on. But the nature of the large organization is such that sometimes it's just very difficult to get access to
yeah,
that thing that you need.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And I mean a lot of the doctors that we work with also work in the NHS.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and they're all fantastic and everyone works really
Yeah.
hard and definitely, I'll be the first one to sing the praises about our NHS and, you
hmm
know, pioneering stuff it does. But um, yeah, I mean, sometimes if you don't, I guess if you have like something obviously wrong with you,
Mm.
I think the NHS is very good at picking
Mm.
that up, or like you have a cancer, it's very good at, you know, getting you great treatment and really pioneering treatment and,
Right. Right.
obviously waiting times and everything aside.
Yes.
Um, but when it's like day-to-day stuff that you're kind of like managing and going, or like preventative care as
You're
well.
right.
Um,
Yes.
I think, yeah, there's companies like Fertility are better set up to intervene and help.
Mm.
And eventually, hopefully, help the NHS. Like we're not trying to, replace it. We're trying to work. Like the aim is
Yeah.
that we're trying to work with the NHS to, I guess, like triage people to like be like,
Right.
okay, you know, we have some specialists. We think that this might be a thing.
Yeah.
Go to the NHS and see, and like,
Right. Right.
ideally get the scans or whatever you need there if you want to, or IVF if that's like a route you're going down.
Sure.
Um, but we can kind of like help you get the information that you need with much faster than is possible
Right.
through that service.
Get that information that then allows you to perhaps navigate the NHS offerings more
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
yeah, I mean, I'm also very impressed with the NHS and they do amazing work. I have family members who work in the NHS. Certainly, my experience is, I've been very supported by the NHS, um, but yeah, navigating it is sometimes tricky, and I think yeah, you kind of need one the information and two also to be very assertive as well to
Mhm.
kind of because I think you just yeah, you can kind of be it's easy to be overwhelmed by what is all of this, and so you can kind of bounce around. Yeah, if you don't have good information, and also the kind of, and that's difficult when you're if you're suffering from an ailment or whatever, you might not be feeling wonderfully motivated
Mhm.
to navigate it all and sort of take the information in and so on. So it's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think like this current government, they've recognized the importance of AI for improving public services.
Oh, really?
Um, and Wes Streeting is talking a lot about how to help the NHS um, do more preventative healthcare and more ongoing
Mm.
managing of stuff, which ultimately, the sooner you catch things, the fewer serious things they are, the easier it is to
Absolutely.
manage, the better the NHS is at all of these things. So I think from early days,
Mm.
like everything they're talking about seems very sensible, and the ideas, and the direction and everything that
Yeah.
healthcare and technology is going. So hopefully we'll see some of these benefits in the NHS soon as well.
Yeah, that would be great. Yes. And yeah, so I'm sort of I'm interested in hearing more about the stuff that you do with fertility. Although we've talked about it before, I think it's a great summary that you've just given. I'm sort of tempted to slide into the next question, which is how is AI affecting your life and work? So and that's AI in the broadest sense is including all of machine learning and just sort of like any kind of problems are solved. Really, I see as humans are sort of somewhat artificial anyway. But yes. The whether that's I think a fascinating subject that you bring up about what the current government is doing in recognizing the value of AI. But yeah, I mean, what so let me put it like this: how do you see AI affecting your life and work at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, so like for the day to day, like quite significantly, I think. So just on the small scales, like
Mm.
so we use Copilot to code with,
Right.
and that's you sort of, I mean, it's essentially just autocomplete, but it's
Mm.
surprising how good and how much more productive it actually makes us is really great. So
Mm.
when so at Hertility, I'm head of data there, and we've just done um a big like data warehouse building, and lots of like writing code to do like model transformations and model building and all of that.
Hmm.
Having Copilot means that you're coding, and especially if it's like, a language that you're fluent in,
Mm.
and you're coding at like the speed that you're thinking about things,
Hmm.
which I think
Hmm.
just like massively helps increase your productivity.
Right.
Um, I mean, the autocomplete doesn't always, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And I think I'm definitely in a routine of like just the amount of output that you can produce in a day with something like that is way higher than without. So
Yeah.
yeah, on a small scale, that for sure has been a really positive impact. And also I think with certainly with like code that you're less familiar with, the ability to kind of have it explained. Like,
Right. Right.
I don't know, example, when I'm looking at Terraform that somebody else has
Right.
written,
Right.
like it's something I'm not as like, fluent in, like just the ability to kind of look through it and be like, what is this going to do?
Right.
And have
Right.
like an AI sort of explain it to you. Um, yeah, it just helps.
Yeah.
It helps like me get better at that kind of thing, me get more fluent at that. So that's all been really great. Um, with the with Hertility and like
Mhm.
kind of our AI. like the benefits that we can have from AI.
Hmm.
And I think this will probably go for a lot of healthcare as well. Like
Yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of people involved, I guess, in the process of
Mm.
going a test happening to a diagnosis, and lots of handovers of information
Right.
and lots of unstructured information that exists in like clinical notes or appointments or
Hmm.
letters that have sent from one place to the other. And the ability to pull that in, to capture data from like unstructured sources,
Mm.
map it, or generate letters from structured data to do that. And um, stuff that normally takes a lot of valuable clinician time to make
Right.
work. Um, there's lots of benefits, I think, to be had in uses of AI in that world, which
Yes.
just means that you can be more efficient at what you do, you can grow faster, you can help more people. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
lots
think
of
we've talked about this before. Is it like there's often maybe like a you've got a doctor's note that's written, and
mm,
you can extract the step for that. But yeah, I guess all as you're saying, there's lots of people in the chain, and the in the absence of technology or in the absence of I guess because it's all technology, it's like there's emails and people written things that are being scanned, and at each point in the chain, if you can identify a way to just make that the correct information be pulled out, then the whole
yeah,
chain can be accelerated, right?
yeah, exactly. And made more secure as well,
Right,
because
right.
obviously you don't want, I mean, secure from a purely data security point of view. Like it's
Yeah,
not good to have um and I guess this is more generally about not necessarily what we're doing at Fertility, but just like in general in the health, like where I
yeah,
see benefits in like the wider healthcare area is like,
yeah.
you know, you don't want, you don't really want doctors emailing over notes about patients to other doctors, right? Because, how do you keep track of where that email is? Is it encrypted and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
And you don't want, and doctors are not going to be always the most technically minded,
sure.
like have the best practice because like that's not how they're trained. They're trained clinicians, that's not their job. And so the more that you can like as well as the efficiency savings of having the information pass between places in in a fast way that saves time, less
Yeah,
people also means less risk of data breaches,
ab-
and keeping patient data more secure, which is also
very
obviously
important.
something important.
Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. And just to go back to on the Copilot, which we also use, do you see any downsides to using Copilot? Do you run into any struggles when you've tried to use it?
The downsides, I mean, yeah, I think especially if you're, I mean, you get lazy for sure, which isn't always a good thing. I think it can help with some of the more junior members on my team who
Hmm.
were learning. So we use DBT, so we write a lot of things in SQL.
Right.
And I could tell when they were first, the over reliance on Copilot when you're first learning a particular language, I think isn't always a good thing. Um, and
Mm.
I could see some of the structure, and I'm like, why have you done it like that? Like this is a random thing, or this doesn't quite fit with
Yeah.
how how we like want to structure our models. And the answer is usually because that's what Copilot said.
Right.
um
Yeah.
and so there's definitely like uh that's the downside, I guess, is like you want to be able, it's important to know that like what you're writing and everything is good and you understand
Yeah.
it first, like before you start using it, and use the autocomplete to speed up the process of
Yeah.
what you need to write, and as you're printing it out, like, yeah, okay, this looks good, let's go there. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's probably the main drawback.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's I mean it's a really interesting piece of technology. And people are excited about I think Claude 3.7 at the
Mm,
moment now. I mean I've been there's we also have Copilot through GitHub, and I think there is like a little option to play with. You can choose one of many. I think again if your admin has given you access to those things. I don't know that I've noticed so much difference between the different
mm,
LLMs, but I I still my intuition is I often feel more comfortable with a standalone um, LLM, like I use the Chat GPT. They have a standalone app, and I'm providing it context, and I've got that conversation separate from my editor. I mean, I use Copilot as well. I'm still I'm not completely sold on the Copilot interface, although I'm using it more and more.
Yeah.
And I do know yeah, it definitely can, as you're saying, like introduce odd structures. I mean, there's, you know, people are excited now about. I'm trying to use Cursor, which, and I think there are other things, the plugins like Klein and Ada, which do like a rag of your existing code base, and so they're able to sort of and add that as context automatically when you're talking to the LLM, so that it will kind of copy the patterns in the rest of your code base better. I'm still not sure
Yeah.
that I've got that completely working, but yeah, the one the more a concern that I have is what happens as relates to testing is it's really easy to use Copilot or an LLM to write all of your unit tests
Mm.
you know, you can effectively write the code and then say, oh, I'll have some tests for this and then put the tests in and the tests will
Yeah.
pass. And that I think unfortunately I think there's a value in when you write tests that you're kind of probing the kind of API interface of your code and perhaps experiencing some of that pain. And like then by just the Copilot just does it
Yeah.
for you, you're not then yeah, I don't know. So there's maybe
No.
something being lost there. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
Brave New World.
no, for sure. I'd agree with that on the test side. Like I feel like part of the process of writing the test is you thinking through the like where can my code fail?
Right, right.
Yeah, you don't like you say, that's an important part of the pain to go through.
Yeah, yeah, but it seems broadly, you know, the I say the co-pilot, I think you were talking about, yeah, also about the transformations in the chain. It's yeah, it's it's a positive thing there. I guess how are you seeing it evolving? It's been changing at such a rapid pace. Um, I mean, and not that any of us have a crystal ball about what's going to happen, but do you see, you know, junior developers kind of disappearing as a species because, you know, we've replaced them with AI? How do you
Yeah.
see it evolving going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, yeah, it's if only you did have a crystal ball, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of excitement in terms of yeah, oh, like you can just we don't need juniors to do these things because we can,
Mhm.
we can yeah, like reduce the size of our team and do all these things. But it's like, well, practically you do need juniors because
Yeah.
that's how you get managers and everything like that. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense to not have a route for juniors. I also think there's a lot of fear that AI is going to take people's jobs and,
Right.
like you're going to be, if you're a copywriter, you're going to be made redundant because you're or like any other kind of like sort of creative worker to do certain things. But
Mm-hmm.
like practically, I don't think that's going to be true. I think the people that are going to do really well I think like AI will just become part of lots of jobs and it will just
Right.
be an assistant to how you do your job that will just, it's like having like a really smart, motivated PA that like doesn't take
Mm-hmm.
breaks. Like I think, or a smart junior in your role. Like I think it will help you accelerate your progress and do lots of things. So I think it's should be treated as not like a I'm going to lose my job if I don't,
Yeah.
like because of AI. It's like, well, no, I mean you'll basically have a better and more interesting job if you know how to best use AI in your role rather than, worrying about it's you or AI. It's like the
Yeah.
combination of the two that I think is the thing that's going to persist in lots of areas, I think.
Yeah. That's fingers crossed. That would, I mean, I think, you know, I guess if we look at the sweep of things, I mean, like an example killer was the spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet made a huge difference to the people who were spending all this time writing down things in
Yeah.
ledgers and then having to cross them out and go back and so on. And you know that there were maybe people who would like I don't know the people who were selling the paper ledgers or other people
Mm.
at the time who were like, no, where are the jobs going? This awful Microsoft has
Yeah.
done this Excel thing or whatever. I mean, not that Microsoft had invented the first one, but um, yeah, it's. I mean, I'm yeah, it's interesting because you know AI has that you know I mean, it's you know we don't have many movies about spreadsheets really.
No.
We have lots of movies about you know AI and how it might impact
Yeah.
us. So it's clearly you know it can be worrying for some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess you're imagining, and particularly for the context of you and Utility, that effectively, yeah, in that ideal world, the AI becomes just it allows you to raise your the level of attention. I often in my head I end up comparing it with coding over the years, where back in the day you had to like do machine code, and then it was assembly, and then
Mm.
basic, all these different things, and the evolution of languages has been, and we see with Python that we've got something that reads a lot like English, and I think a lot of people prefer programming in things like Python because it's you're not having you've got an abstraction and you can think less about what's going on with the computer. And I guess there's a way in which we can see the LLMs. You can sort of stay in the domain of your enterprise, of your
Mm.
the business, without having to drop between the levels, and the kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, it does. And I quite like the spreadsheet analogy. I've been thinking I was it's something I think yeah, I agree with. And I would have also likened it to that, where it's like you're like so many jobs now involve a
Yes.
spreadsheet of some form or other.
Right. Yes.
Um, and I think the interesting thing about like LLMs in that space is like the pace of development is, ra massive compared to like what it was like. Like, I think with spreadsheets, it's like, yeah, okay, you could like learn, a little bit of like IT at school and you get the basics
Hmm.
of the spreadsheet and you're like, yeah, okay, by the time I leave school and I get a job, it looks pretty much the same as it did when I was at school. So
Yeah.
this is familiar and this is what I work. Whereas now it's like, every month, like, something new's coming out and,
Yes.
LLMs are becoming more sophisticated. The ways in which you interact with them is changing. So,
Mm, mm,
um, and I think if like I'm going slightly like doomer on the whole thing,
hmm,
like
hmm.
the things, I guess the things that we might need to, that might cause problems, other than just the like, straightforward replacements of jobs, which again I hope doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
yeah,
I think more just hope it just becomes more symbiotic, is like,
yeah.
whilst a lot of people are getting the value out of, ChatGPT, other LLMs, and using them a lot, there's also a lot of the people in the UK that aren't.
Right.
And,
Mm,
how is the gap widening between
mm,
people that are like really good at getting value and using LLMs in their day-to-day life, um,
hmm.
and in their jobs, and the people that sort of know what it is but haven't really used it or aren't quite
Yeah,
sure how to use it or
yeah.
put in a prompt, but the prompt's not that informative, so the answer's not going to be great. And it's like
Hmm,
if you don't
hmm.
think about bringing everyone along on the LLM journey
Mm,
as it evolves, are you going to end up with yeah, a group of people through whatever reason have like not really like adopted the AI revolution soon enough that are just, closed out of different careers and, you
yeah,
know, and potentially like massively limiting their earning potential and
yeah,
all of the problems that come with that. So yeah, I think it's good to remember that it's amazing, but also, and it's, going to be revolutionary, but not unless you like help
yeah,
upskill everyone in the
yeah,
country and, the world as well, because like then you get into
yeah,
like who has access to the internet and,
yeah, totally.
devices that can use it and everything like that. All of these things that require you to get value from this supposedly like free tool. It's only free
Yeah,
at the point of access. There's a lot that needs to happen for you to get
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
And I think we run in danger of sort of creating quite a lot of inequality for like opportunity and resources and everything, if the value of it is not spread out in the right way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I mean, like particularly when the pace of change is fast, the ability of people who, to retrain,
Yeah,
is more and more challenging. I think that's, maybe that's what might be different with this round of changes, is that they are perhaps happening so fast. Although on the plus side, I feel like you know, if we might compare it with spreadsheets, that the number of people who are comfortable using spreadsheets is probably less than the number of people who are comfortable with the chat interface. Not that the chat
yeah,
interface should be the be all and end all, but there's like I think we have gone through, with the like online. So I mean, the internet has reached a certain number of people, and it's now. I mean, not that that doesn't come with its own uh, challenges and problems. Yeah, yeah, but no, t totally. There's that's the challenge for particularly governments for all of us is that we're not leaving people out. I mean, I think we already have leaving people out as a problem. It makes me wonder though about the this design of the UI. I mean, you mentioned about having a really great PA. I mean, maybe with in a few years with robots, the kind of almost the more even more universal interface than a chat UI, a chat interface is actually a robot that will come over and say, oh well, we like we'll sort of if
Yeah.
you had a kind of robot with you that had that like godlike knowledge of everything and also the social skills to say, oh well, let me help you understand that, and it would be like having a sort of a Socrates with you
Yeah.
at all times. Maybe that would be it could open up in that way. I don't know. I'm speculating completely there, obviously.
Because you're wearing a Skynet t-shirt right now.
Well, yeah, that's because it could go the wrong way. I mean, and
Yeah.
on that side, when you mentioned the do, I mean, when I've mentioned in the Rebel AI community, which of course we haven't mentioned that much, but I think we're both stalwart members and get a lot of value from it. We talk a lot about AI and sort of management and leadership and these sorts of things. We're not using AI, particularly for the community, it's a very, it's a person to person community, isn't it? Not
Yeah.
dissimilar to perhaps the, communities throughout the ages. But when I've mentioned like some of the more sort of dystopian possible futures, I
Mhm.
get the sense that most people don't really want to talk about that. Do you worry about the more, that like it does feel like to me that there's a potential for the technology to go, beyond what a spreadsheet can do in that, it doesn't seem to me that there's anything that blocks this
Mm.
technology as it increases in intelligence from starting to have its own goals and intentions. I don't know how you feel about any of that. Is it similar to aliens and flat Earth, or is it worth any thought?
I mean, I think I certainly think it's worth thought. I think it's an interesting, um, yeah, it's an interesting idea, a thought experiment of like how, where could this go? Because I think like
Mm,
10 years
mm.
ago, I don't think anyone, maybe some people thought we'd be where we are now. I think
Right.
like having like a chat interface was probably not completely out of the realms of possibility, but I
Mm,
think most people have been quite surprised about the pace of development and how quick we've got where we are now. So,
yes.
the idea that you could predict what's going to happen in the future,
Mm,
based on current trends seems sort of impossible in that way,
yeah.
because
Well.
I think we've proven that that's hard. So, like robots enslaving, like, sure, why not? I mean, it's not like hope it doesn't happen, but I don't, like I say, I don't think I'm like, I think it's worth thinking about. I don't think I'm like, especially like we're going all like tinfoil hat and worried about,
No,
and
no.
everything or things like that. Um, I mean, I think like climate change is a reasonable analogy here in terms of
Mm, mm,
um like the number of like speed the climate is always changing, right? Like
mm,
there's always been a process of the earth like
indeed.
heating and cooling and everything like that. The
Yeah.
problem with the current man-made climate change is mostly like the pace at which it's happening, right? Like I think if things
Mm,
happen too quickly, a species will struggle to adapt. Um,
indeed.
and if over a change over a long period of time, you know, species evolve, things adapt, everything carries
Right.
on. Um, and maybe the same is here. Like I think the faster thing AI changes
Yeah.
how we live, how we interact with things, the more of a challenge it is for our current society and how we organize ourselves and everything. Like the more of a challenge it is to adapt. I think we'll survive. Everything will happen. It's just
Mm,
you know, the more we and so by the same logic, like the more we think about, what might happen in the future, the more we're
yes.
kind of like preparing for change, and therefore the easier it will be to change in a way that is fair and equitable across everyone in society as much as
Yeah.
possible, and not just the people that happen to have. I don't know, the best tech or the,
Right.
whatever it is at the moment. So yeah, I think from that angle, it's kind of useful and interesting to think about as just a way of preparing for, yeah, how we might adapt to it in the future. But at the same time, we should welcome all of the benefits that it is already bringing and will bring, and all of the and like so can you continue with the climate change? Maybe we'll be able to feed people more efficiently. We'll be able to
Mm.
generate energy more effectively with the increases in AI as well. So yeah, it's good and bad, but I think it's also good to be prepared and to think about how to adapt.
Yeah, well, I love your analogy there with the climate change. Often it's the pace of change, whether it's the pace of change in AI, the pace of change in
Mm,
climate, that can make it difficult for the individual, for the society, for the species to adapt. Yeah, it's a perfect analogy. Yeah, and I totally agree with the we should be open to thinking about, we should expect the unexpected. And that's what's shocked me in some ways about, many leading thinkers who seem to talk about the AI as if it was like a spreadsheet or another just piece of software that
mm.
how could it ever have an intention? And then I'm like kind of anyway, but
Yeah.
you
But then
know
how do you then you get into like, well, do you have free will? Like, what does it mean for a human to have intention?
well indeed
We're
indeed so.
essentially a series of synapses firing that's affected by our environment in ways we don't really understand, which is kind of why we think we have free will, but we probably don't.
No, I think we probably. I mean, I think there's a lot of neuroscientific evidence to suggest that our free will, as indeed our personalities, are illusions. That if we could only relinquish, we might be in a happier state. Yes, although to me, it's sort of almost it's like the intentionality question is a side issue. If you've got huge AIs that are sort of managing financial trading schemes and
Mm.
systems, if you don't have the right checks and balances in there, then suddenly, they can cause an economic crash, or if they're controlling nuclear
Mm.
missiles. Anyway, but you've been very generous with your time, and we should probably wrapping up with our final question, which is, a bit of a oddball one, but the chance for you to, express any aspect of it. But what does it all mean? All this, the life, the universe, and everything. This strange thing that we're experiencing. Is it a dream? Is it one of many lives? What's your take on what it all means?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say that for the individual, I think it's just about um, moving through you have a very short lifespan in, the context of even just humanity, and then you go to
Right.
extend that out to the life of the world and then the life of the universe. It's like it's almost overwhelming to think about like
Right.
how tiny your like, spell on the earth is. So I think um you just have to make the best of it. And for that could be, you know, try and do the right thing, try and make things better than they were before you came and for people around
Mm,
you, but then also try and spend your time on the things that matter to you.
mm,
I think there's a lot of distractions in the world potentially. There's a lot of shiny things that look
mhm.
cool and take your attention, but maybe they give you like 10 minutes of satisfaction or,
Right.
whatever it is, but they don't like fundamentally make you happy. And I think
Mm,
just trying to spend the time on the things that which is different for everybody, but the things
sure.
that like, really, really matter to you and the relationships and like with your
Mm,
friends, family, loved ones, etc. Um, that really matter to you. Like value them, be thankful for them, and make the best of them while you're here.
amen. Yeah, that sounds great to me. Yes, and just to jump back to what you were saying there at the beginning there, about, we do have what seems like a very short time compared to, the lifespan of the universe, and indeed the scope of the universe,
Mm.
like in the physical space. And I think the thing that prevents me from getting overwhelmed by those things is that I realize that I'm fitting all of that in my head. And this is
Yeah.
partly from my astrophysics degree and the cognitive science degree and so on, is yes, maybe those things exist outside. Like we've learned conceptually about, this is our, 15 billion year old universe. This is the scope of, like the size of it. But all of those things, maybe it exists internally, externally, sorry, but like the whole of reality, at least as we experience it, is a projection from internally within our heads. And I mean, the thing that boils my noggin is this. I mean, I've always been, a very sciencey person and believed in the, absolute existence of the external stuff because that's what everybody was saying. But having counted through, Buddhist teachings of this idea that, it could be consciousness first. All of this entire universe might be a dream generated from inside our own heads, which I don't expect anyone to take me seriously when I say that. But I don't think we can exclude that possibility. And in which case, that means I guess I've got the biggest head in the universe or something. I don't know. Anyway.
I mean, if that's what like gets you up in the morning and makes you make sense of the world, and then like who am I to contradict?
Indeed. Well, but yeah, in seriousness, yeah, I think as you say, it's those connections with people, with our friends and family, and as I look through my life, yeah, it's so easy to get excited about playing with the latest laptop or phone or LLM or what have you. But the real value, I think, is there in the interaction between the humans. And thank you so much for providing a good hour of human interaction. It's been lovely talking to you, Lorna. Is there should we just quickly promote? I mean, it's just that Hertility is doing great work. If people are interested to find out more about Hertility, to find out more about you, where would they be looking in the teeming interwebs?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so LinkedIn mostly. Like, I'm not like a mega active blogger or anything.
Sure.
Fortunately, maybe fortunately, I don't know. Um,
Mhm.
is what it is. So I mean, obviously, if you or anyone who anyone knows would like value the services of fertility, I want to know more. Like, I'm always happy to talk to people about women's health and hormones and healthcare in general and all that. So please do come find me and yeah, drop me a message on LinkedIn for sure, or say hi at Pi Data London meetups at which I, try to go to semi-regularly. Yeah, always happy for chats like that.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And I'll just say thanks to everyone for listening. And this wraps up this episode of Rebel AI podcast. If you'd like to be on the podcast or join the Rebel AI community, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, Sam Joseph at sam@neurogrid.com. And we'll see you all soon. Thanks again, Lorna.
Thank you.